look pretty hairy, with people running in the street, carrying spears and shields. Look at the footage, they genuinely are. I'm not being racist. I mean, I'm not just being racist. So that isn't Birmingham, by the way. As Michael Caine would say, Zulus, sir. Thousands of them. They are Zulus, although these ones aren't wearing grass skirts or chucking spears at Michael Caine. But just like the protests in Britain and Ireland, these men are protesting against mass immigration from crap-hole countries in Africa like Zimbabwe. These protests are happening in South Africa. The only thing is, South Africa is next to Zimbabwe, so you'd think that people would fit in a little bit better. You know, we get Zimbabwean asylum seekers, economic migrants, and we're supposed to assimilate them and everything. They can't even assimilate in South Africa. And the language used by the protesters sounds pretty similar to the language used in anti-migrant protests in Britain. We're seeing the same sort of things being shouted there as you'd maybe see, you know, shouted by somebody the BBC doesn't like. But it was funny seeing how differently the BBC reported on these protests compared to anti-migrant protests in Britain. Thousands of people have marched in South Africa's main cities to demand that all undocumented migrants leave the country. Police officers backed by private security guards have been deployed because of fears that protests could turn violent. Anti-migrant groups had set Tuesday as the deadline for undocumented migrants to leave. Many foreigners have already fled to escape violence and intimidation. South African police say that 25,000 have been repatriated so far. Most are from other African countries. One undocumented Malawian told the BBC he was happy to be going back but heartbroken to be leaving behind 4 young children. Yeah, that's an African man, heartbroken to be leaving his children behind. The Ministry of Police said the protests had largely been peaceful across the country with isolated incidents of looting. Just a little smidgen of looting, just isolated instance of looting. However, Police Minister Feroz Kachalia confirmed that the army was deployed on a contingency basis in parts of Johannesburg as well as Durban. The BBC just casually mentions at the end of the article that in 2008 more than 60 people died during a wave of rioting against non-South Africans, so against migrants. Can you imagine how they'd report on that if it happened in Britain? Oh my god, if that happened here, every single white British person who wasn't a card-carrying member of the Labour Party would be rounded up and shot. I mean, compare that report about the smidgen of looting, but largely peaceful, and these people have legitimate concerns. Compare all that, those guys running about with spears and shields. Compare that to how the BBC reports on anti-migrant protests in Britain, which tend to be like pink ladies and guys just waving placards and quite angry. Violent Southport protests reveal organising tactics of the far right. Oh, these ones in Britain are far right. These ones in Britain are far right, but the ones in South Africa, no, they're not far right at all. This article talks about social media posts justifying extreme violence and posting racist material. Oh, the racist far right justifying violence. Those guys in South Africa running with spears, clubs, literally threatening people. In 2008, they killed 60 people. They've already killed people this year as well, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure they have. They've been running people out of their homes, running migrants out of their homes, but they're just like, oh, they're just locals with legitimate concerns. I wonder what the difference is. I wonder what the difference is between the black South Africans and the white British people. That means that one group are racist far-right thugs and the other group have got legitimate concerns. Another article about Britain. We're watching you, far-right protesters warned. Hundreds of mosques are strengthening security amid concerns Islamic places of worship could be targeted. Oh, the poor mosques. The poor mosques. What have Muslims ever done? Oh, yeah, that stuff. Police say asylum protest turned to thuggery. Thuggery. Campaigners say anti-asylum hotel protesters are extremists. An anti-racism group has hit out at extremists who took part in a protest against asylum seekers being housed in a former hotel in Falkirk. Hundreds gathered outside the Cladden Hotel on Saturday. At least one protester was seen performing a Nazi salute, while another carried a banner that said, "Kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out." Protesters, some waving union flags, chanted, "Send them home," and anti-racism demonstrators responded with chants of, "Refugees are welcome here." Gary Clark from Falkirk Trade Union Council said he saw some really awful sights at the event. Mr. Clark, who uses a mobility scooter, said he had anti-disabled abuse shouted at him as he made his speech. He told BBC Scotland's Mornings programme that he saw neo-Nazi groups openly displaying banners. He said the police has to escort us around the corner to stop them attacking us. Their faces were pure anger and hatred was written on their faces. These terrible far-right thugs. Then you see photos of the far-right thugs, and there we go. Well, they're the Nazis, are they? Waving the Union Jack, that classic flag loved by Nazis. They love nothing more than seeing the flag that destroyed the Nazis. Nonsense. That's just a bunch of guys. I bet that supposed Nazi salute, that's probably somebody waving to his mate. You know, we're over here. Did you get the ice creams? Nazis, come on. And yeah, I can't imagine why people in Falkirk are protesting against asylum seekers. Oh wait, Sadiq Nikzad, an asylum seeker from Afghanistan, was jailed for 9 years for raping a 15-year-old girl in Falkirk town centre. Don't these evil bigots like this happening to local girls? Man, maybe the bigots are right. Do these people ever consider that? And listen to how South Africa's leader, Cyril Ramaphosa, speaks to his people. President Cyril Ramaphosa met some of the protest leaders on the eve of Tuesday's marches to defuse tensions. He has repeatedly warned demonstrators to act peacefully, while also accepting the need for immigration reforms. Some foreign nationals who live in South Africa are here lawfully, he reminded citizens in his weekly newsletter. Compare that with how Keir Starmer talks about British protesters against mass immigration. Starmer condemns far-right thuggery on UK streets and says that those involved will regret it. Far-right thuggery. What's interesting is that with a threat of violence from guys armed with blow darts and shields with feathers on them, African countries such as Malawi and Nigeria have been repatriating their citizens that are in South Africa. That would never happen in Britain. Even when migrants commit horrific crimes, such as this guy who's a ringleader of a grooming gang, there are all kinds of loopholes to let them avoid being repatriated. The message the government sends is that British men need to take to the streets with their traditional weapons. Obviously, we don't have Zulu weapons. A British man would look terrible in a grass skirt. And, you know, we don't have the hand-eye coordination to throw spears. But you can expect to see British tribesmen, the Picts, the Jutes, the Celts, the Angles, the Saxons. Yeah, I've been listening to Lewis Schaefer. Dancing in formation, holding claymore swords and those big spiky metal balls on the end of a chain. That's apparently what the government wants us to do. Let's watch a little bit more footage.
This is a two-way, right?